Hey everybody, it's Victoria. I'm so glad you could join me today. So I was looking back at the last time I uploaded a video, and apparently the last day I filmed was May 2nd, which is so long ago, especially in quarantine times. And today is actually June 12th. So it's been a few days since I last filmed, and I figured I'd kind of give a little bit of an update on where things are at right now. I'm going to be leaving Spain here shortly. I'm finishing up my last class. We finish classes the end of next week, so a week from today, because today's Friday. And then I'm going to be catching a flight home, back to the US, and dealing with reverse culture shock and then thesis writing. There's just a lot of things that need to get done in a very short amount of time. The biggest thing that's been happening since I last vlogged was I've been alone. I have been alone since May 1st, which is days upon days and weeks upon weeks of me being alone. I'm still trying my best to socially distance. I've met up with a couple of people a couple of times. I went to the beach one day when it was really hot and nice. I haven't gone hiking yet. I need to do that, but it's been a bit cold and rainy out. So like 2 weeks ago, it was really hot and sunny, and I didn't take advantage of that like I should have. But it's gonna be cold and rainy basically until I leave. So I'm very disappointed in that. Anyway, I've spent most of that time alone. I've played ukulele. I've worked on a lot of schoolwork. There's been a lot of schoolwork having to get done. I've just chilled. I've spent a lot of time with myself. I went for a walk with a friend and I got ice cream, and it was really good ice cream. What else have I done? I've read a lot of books. I watched all of the Harry Potter movies in 24 hours, which completely destroyed my sleep cycle, and I'm still feeling the repercussions of that 2 weeks later. The joys. But it was on my bucket list, which makes it a lot more interesting. So I have this thing called a 30 by 30 list. I took a picture of this list I wrote out. It was the night before I turned 21. And I was like, okay, there's 30 things I want to accomplish on this list. And one of the things on the list was I want to watch all the Harry Potter movies in 24 hours. And I was like, when in the world am I going to get a better time to do that than here in Spain, where I'm by myself and I have nothing better to do, and I can watch all the Harry Potter movies for free on Netflix here, so it's nothing worrying about all the logistics of getting the movies, which is super nice. And I did it, and I kind of dozed a little bit through the first one. I was tired, so I took a little bit of a nap during the first one, but I've seen the first one recent enough that I was like, no big deal. I've watched this enough. The second one I watched and I was paying attention to. The third one I was watching. The fourth one I called my friend Ellie, and we watched it together. Her in Illinois, back in the US, and me on my couch here in Spain. Spent a lot of time on that couch. That couch and I have become close and personal friends. And then from there, I watched 5 and 6 on my own. And then she joined me to watch 7 and 8 movies. The 7 and 8 movies, which was, it was just nice. It was just so nice. It was nice too that I could watch, I believe it was no. Was it? I think we watched the second one together. Yes, we watched the second one together. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. This was a long time ago, and it was a very long day where I started watching the movies at noon, and then I continued watching them till 8 o'clock in the morning. I am not made to stay up until 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, so that was a rough night. I was very tired. So we watched the second one, and then I watched the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth by myself, and it's a very long day. But it was nice to do that little thing to mark off my list. It's just been interesting. One of my friends got married, socially distant, quarantine friendly wedding. What else happened? I don't know. there's just been a lot of life that's happened in the last few weeks, and it's interesting. Things have opened up a lot here in Spain. I'm able, if I'm going into any sort of store, or I've only gone in stores, I haven't gone into any restaurants. I'm doing what I can to stay away from people because I don't want to get into like trouble with getting sick, because since I'm by myself, like that's about the only thing that can happen. And so I've been to the grocery store several times, went to the pharmacy to pick up some medicine, gone on a couple walks. Things have opened up a lot here in Spain, and it's a lot more stable with COVID and everything that's happening with that. So I'm very thankful about that. The quarantine officially ended a while ago, but there's like stages happening to open things up. It's just a weird time to be alive and to be looking towards the future, especially as a humanitarian. I also want to address kind of what else has been happening in the last few weeks, which is the Black Lives Matter movement gaining more popularity. And I didn't realize my implicit bias in racism. I knew that I had these biases and that there was such an important thing in my life as white privilege, but I didn't realize, like I had an idea. My first real experience with understanding my white privilege was when I moved to China. So when I was in China, I lived there for a year, and my best friend that I met there, she's Black. And I frequently was the only white person around. I would get stared at. People would look at me funny, especially for like the first half of the year I was there. I had my hair bleached bright blonde color, so people would just be like, look at the white girl who's got this blonde hair, and like I'm not Chinese sized, so people just like stare all the time and look at me, take my picture, and it was something that was really, really difficult for me to adjust to. But then I would also see what would happen when I was with my friend Sophia, who is Black, and we would go walk. One of the craziest times I can remember of just feeling other was my friend Sophia, she's Black, me, Victoria, as white as can be. Like, I struggle to find foundations and things that are pale enough for my skin. And then one of our coworkers who's Indian. So the three girls, three different ethnicities are walking down the street, and we're just getting stared at. And there was this guy who was on this bike, and he was filming us. So it was like one of those like rideshare bikes. Which wasn't really popular back at home or really anywhere outside of China until after I got home. I didn't notice them beforehand. And I don't speak Chinese. I can do a little bit, not very much. I can do very basic functioning in Chinese. But Sophia, she's lived in China for a significant amount of time, and so she's completely fluent. She may not be happy with me saying that she's completely fluent because it's not up to the level of fluency she wants to have, but you're completely fluent, Sophia. Get over it. You know Chinese extremely well. You went to medical school in Chinese. You're good. You're welcome. But anyway, so the three of us were walking down the street, and this Chinese guy is riding backwards on his bicycle, and I just see him filming and saying all of these things at us. And apparently he was yelling a bunch of really derogatory racial slurs at us as he's riding by on this bicycle. And with this, I didn't really understand I felt the otherness, but I didn't realize until then the otherness that like Sophia was also feeling, because we could go to the exact same location and I would be treated completely different than she would. People in China require you to have your picture on your resume. And if I would have applied for a job, like they hire people in China if they're just white to go sit in boardroom meetings so they seem more cultured. Like, and then it's almost impossible for Black people to find jobs in China because it's like hard for them to, like, their skin tone is derogatory against them. I'm making a lot of bold statements. This is within my experience. I'm not going to say that for everyone or everything. I'm giving that caveat of this is my experience from when I lived in China. from the summer of 2017 to the next summer of 2018. So about 1 year. So it was just a very interesting time in just understanding. Like, I had a coworker who's Chinese, and she said that if she and me and Sophia, the three of us would go to this market, and we would all go to it at different times. I would get like the regular price jacked up all the way up. Sophia would get like the cheap price because she's black. And then my Chinese friend would get, or coworker would get a little bit higher than even like the pricing, and everything is just insane. And there's something wrong with systems that I still won't understand, especially what this Black Lives Matter with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and I can't remember the rest of everybody's names. But we have a problem in my home country of the United States. We have issues that are happening, and we have human rights violations that are happening. We have war crimes, basically, that are happening against our own people. And this is not okay. This is not okay. This is a time for white people to understand how historically we have wronged others. I will admit I don't know everything on this issue. I am not completely I have not studied intensely on it. I took an ethnic relations class in college. I've done some cultural studies. But we have an issue that needs to be addressed. People are angry for good reasons. And I support the Black Lives Matter movement and to fund community-driven initiatives to prevent crime and everything else before it happens so we can create a more equal society. Like, that makes sense. That makes sense. Why would we want to pay more money for... When I was in college, I did one of my first research projects on the death penalty. So what does it look like for the death penalty in America? So not just like the rationale behind should we be killing people as a government, just systematically killing people. I'm not for the death penalty in any circumstance. I think it's too far. I'm not okay with it. But I was doing the analytics on it. And when you're looking at the death penalty in the United States, it's actually like over $1 million more expensive. This is what I can recall from my paper I wrote back in 2013. This is a very long time ago, 7 years ago. Like, it costs $1 million more per incarcerated individual to be on the death penalty than it does to have them incarcerated for life, which is nuts. Like, we should be decreasing this total number of incarcerations and working on rehabilitation programs instead, because, that's what we need to do. We don't want people to be getting arrested and not being able to vote and not being able to do other things. That's not okay. That's not okay. But going back to the death penalty. So you would think if somebody's on death row for 10 years, they're on death row for 10 years, you don't have to pay as much money. But the cost difference in prison upkeep is a lot higher. There's you have 10 years from the time you're convicted to stereotypically until you would be terminated as an individual, or murdered, or killed, whichever word you would like to use. I'm not going to be too picky there. And what they would do is, so the state would be paying for, there would be so many lawyer fees to get everything extended, and everything just adds up to be so much more money than to put somebody in prison for life. And I don't think I think we need to be figuring out a way to help individuals. I'm going into career studies as a humanitarian worker, and the goal of humanitarian work and the goal of protection, particularly, which is what I'm studying here at University of Deusto, when you're operating towards protection of people, you're going towards the protection of human rights. And if we aren't protecting people's rights? What are we doing? Like, there is something wrong. If there is a problem and people are crying out and you're hearing them in pain, you need to listen. And I need to not be talking as much on this issue, but I want to raise awareness to it and to firmly state that I support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I believe that we should be listening to our Black friends, our Black colleagues, the people who are speaking up and letting their stories be known. We need to listen. Listening is hard. Listening is very hard. That's why it's like when you're learning a language, the listening skills are one of the most difficult skills to develop. And we need to listen, and we need to do active listening. And active listening is very difficult because that means you're understanding and you're paying attention and you're able to ask questions and follow up. We need to be using these resources to encourage our understanding of what history has happened and everything else. I plan on reading some more books on everything, and I'm figuring out how I want to approach it, but I'm working on it. And I'm sorry if I have ever used things racially inappropriately and offended anyone, or unintentionally forced the white privilege of racist ideology on other people. I apologize for doing that ever. I hate the idea of hurting someone like that and like using racial slurs or anything like that. I don't ever recall using them to the top of my head. That's something I've always strayed away from, even in jokes. But like, if I have used them or if I have unintentionally harmed you, I apologize, and I'll do what I can to fix myself. And yeah, so talking about that, I'm gonna let you guys go. I don't think I'm gonna do another vlog like this during my time here in Spain. I'm gonna be leaving soon, and I have my camera currently on a tripod, a toilet paper tripod that it was on last time when I was doing all my filming, and I am needing to use this toilet paper because I'm about to leave, and I don't want to have to be figuring out how to stack everything up again. This is crazy. This is crazy. What is the world coming to? But you're not alone in this, and we're in a time of turmoil in the world, in our countries, individually, in our communities, and we need to remember to give people grace and understanding, and we need to be able to understand where white fragility is coming from for people, for other white people, and we need to be confronting the things that we have done wrong in our past and be willing to listen. And also, we're dealing with a pandemic, and people, wear your masks. Wear your masks. I'm going to be going on a flight here in 9 days, and I'm going to be wearing a mask for the entire time, and that is a whole nother story, but I'm planning to film that entire time I'm going to be traveling, and so you guys can follow along on that journey to see what it's like for me to fly back home to the US in a pandemic. Yay! Everybody's favorite. So yeah, I hope you are staying safe and your family as well, and you are well, and that you have done something with quarantine. I think the biggest thing I've done since I've been quarantined, I think it's like March 14th. That is so long ago. Oh! So since March 14th, like the biggest thing I've learned, or I've done, is I've learned to play the ukulele, and I've learned to be alone. I've been alone for so long. I'm looking forward to being around other people, but I'm also knowing the second I'm going to be going anywhere, like I am completely, like my cardio is zero because I spend all my time in my apartment. I need to go on more walks and such. And like everything else, it's going to be a rough transition, especially when I'm going through the airports, because I'm not used to being around people, and people, it's a lot to take in. So yeah, I'm ranting again. This is kind of a 20-minute rant right now when I'm looking at the timer on my camera, but stay well, stay safe, do what you can to protect those around you, and I hope you're doing well, and I'll catch you guys later. So talk to you later. Bye. Good night.